Hi, I'm just going to read the chapters for those of you who missed the live lesson, because unfortunately we're not going to be able to share the recording with you today. So I read to everybody chapters 31 and 32. So if you remember at the end of the last chapter, Addy was playing with his torch that Obi had given him, and he spotted a light coming from the other tower block. A lot of the people in the live lesson thought that that might be Gaia trying to signal to him. So chapter 31 starts with him thinking about that. The next morning when I wake up, the very first thing I do is look out of the window at Gaia's tower. From where I am, I can see that the Bluchers have completely surrounded the block. Even from so high up, I can see their glistening blue bodies entangled with one another, and terrifyingly, I see that they are moving. Are they swaying in the wind or raging towards Gaia's tower, reaching forward to their next meal? The ground all around the tower is thick with them, a mass of blue. And I can see with deadly certainty that they've started to feed. It's the same as with all the other. Blocks that are still standing. I can almost sense the Bluchers' hunger in the way they've gathered around the bottom of each building, their silvery blue colour pulsing as they push forward. Like how sometimes you can see your heartbeat on your wrist. It's not a big movement, but it doesn't stop. One pulse follows another, and then another, and then another, and it won't stop until that building is gone. Whatever it is they're doing, it won't be too long before they eat away so much at the bottom that the blocks will all just collapse. I can see that the lower parts of the buildings are already a little thinner. They won't last long. I count up 17 windows to find Gaia's flat. I try to look really hard to see if anyone is moving inside, but it's too far away. But I know there is someone there, and that if I don't do something, I'll watch the tower fall, knowing there is a person trapped inside. And the part that I don't want to say out loud to myself is that the person might be Gaia. I have to find Obi. He'll know what to do. I run downstairs to find him. I stop at Dory's flat first because I think she might know where Obi is. Dory opens the door straight away and says, "Good timing, Addy, I've just put some porridge on." But she stops talking when she sees my face. Dory sends me downstairs to the basement to find Obi. She doesn't ask me what's wrong or tell me to calm down. She just looks at my face and says, "Try the basement, Addy." I hardly ever come down here. There are big thick pipes that run along the ceiling and only very small rectangular windows, so without the lights on it's hard to see where you're walking. Part of me feels afraid, an old fear that you could get lost in these corridors and never get out, as if it was a maze or a labyrinth rather than just a bunch of rooms and hallways. I put the thought out of my mind and start walking, shouting out Obi's name as I go. "You scared me, kid," Obi says when he pokes his head out of the doorway. That's a joke, I think. How could I scare anyone? I tell Obi about the torch signals, how I think it might be my friend Gaia, and how the Bluchers have surrounded the other buildings. Obi doesn't say anything as I speak. He frowns and rubs his face quite a lot, but he doesn't speak until I've finished. I've been so worried about Gaia and so glad to see Obi that I've barely noticed the room we're in. You know when you're feeling and thinking about two things at exactly the same time, and they take up all the space in your brain? When I finish talking, I look around me and take in where we are. I guess I must be in Obi's flat, but it's tiny, just one room really, and quite a small one at that. There's a single bed that has a red and green blanket on it, neatly tucked in, and a little chest of drawers, but not much else. It almost looks like it could belong to anyone, but there are lots and lots of framed photographs on Obi's chest of drawers. I can see Obi in one of them standing next to a lady, but he's smiling from ear to ear, so it might not be him. Perhaps it's his identical twin. I open my mouth to ask him who it is. Then I remember, in a rushing flood, why I came to find Obi. I think of Gaia trapped in the tower, the blue swarm of Bluchers hungrily feasting at the foundations of her building. "Please help," I say instead. When Obi talks, it's so slow and quiet that I have to strain my ears to hear him. "We must try to rescue them," he says. "But what about the spores?" "We must try," he says again. So, they're going to try and rescue whoever it is who's trapped in the other tower. Chapter 32 as well now. Over the next hour, I learn more and more about Obi's job as a caretaker. I find out that he has a bunch of keys that can open every door in the tower. Imagine, He could go into anyone's flat at any time. Only if I need to fix things, Addie, Obi tells me as I stare open-mouthed. I don't know if you heard that, but that was a cat destroying things. Imagine if he could go into anyone's flat at any time. Only if I need to fix things, Addie, Obi tells me as I stare open-mouthed at the shiny set of brass keys. Not just because I fancy it, but you can open any door in this building. Yes, of course. Even the door to my flat? Yes. Have you ever had to do that? I ask, looking at Obi out of the corner of my eye. Your mum's let me in the past, so I haven't had to. Oh, I say. How is your mum doing? Obi says, quietly and quickly. She's all right, I say. It's okay, Addie, as long as she's all right. I don't think she knows what's going on, I continue. Ah, says Obi, that must be difficult. Well, I say, not wanting to say yes or no. It's hard not to talk through things with someone you love. Who do you talk to? I ask. Obi chuckles a bit, although I don't know why. Me? He scratches his beard thoughtfully. Well, I guess I talk to Dory. Do you love Dory then? Well, Dory's a splendid woman. Maybe I do love her in some ways, but... Obi goes quiet then, and I start thinking about the woman in the photo. I wonder if that's the person Obi loves. But, I say. Well, things change, don't they? Is this the woman you love? I ask, and I point to the framed photograph sitting on the chest of drawers. Obi picks it up and stares at it thoughtfully. Cicely, he says. Cicely was a wonderful woman. Where is she now? Obi looks at me sharply and puts the frame back onto the chest so violently that it falls on its face. He has to pick it up and stand it back up again properly. She left, he says simply. He stands up. The conversation is over. Now, let's go and help your Gaia before those butchers get any further. Obi walks out of the tiny room and I spend a moment more looking at those smiling faces. Cicely's bright, friendly smile. And I know now who the other person is. It isn't Obi's twin. It's Obi when he was very happy. I run to catch up with Obi, who's already disappearing down the corridor. I soon learn that Obi knows about everyone living in the tower. He doesn't just know about my mum. He knows about Michael's mum and that she's good at cooking. He knows about the man on the second floor who never used to leave his flat. He wasn't like Mum though. It was because he was too old. He had someone come round to bring him meals every day, and when the building started falling, his daughter came and took him away. He knows about the family with the mum who always made nice cakes. He knows about the woman who owned a cat that had kittens. He knows about everyone. He takes me to a flat on one of the lower floors. It has a funny medicine smell about it. A bit like the stuff that people pour into a cut, and they say it won't hurt, but it does. Everything in the flat is brown. The chairs, the sofa, even the walls and the lampshades. Obi picks up 2 tall silver bottles which have thin clear plastic wires with a mask attached to them from behind one of the chairs. Then we go to a flat a few floors up. It's full of large photographs of jungles and deserts and things like that. There's a large vase of flowers that have died on a table in the sitting room, and lots of books too. But unlike Dory's books, which look like they've been read about 10 times, these ones are big and shiny, glossy and new looking. Obi comes out of the bedroom with one of those really big rucksacks that looks so huge you can't imagine how one person could carry it on their back. He gives it to me to carry. Although it's so big with nothing in it, it's quite light. Then we go back down to Obi's room in the basement, Obi carrying the oxygen tanks and me the rucksack. Obi hands me the roll of white tape. You've got to stick this over the mask, kid, when I tell you. No holes, okay? He's put the silver bottles into the bag and fiddled with the top of one of the bottles so we hear a little hissing sound. Then he puts the rucksack on his back and sits on the bed. He puts the mask on and tells me to cover it. I try my best, I really do, but I'm worried. The woman on the TV said the spores are tiny and I'm sure they could get through the tape. When I'm done, Obi takes a scarf out of his drawer and wraps that over his face as well, so you can just about see his eyes, but that is all. Then he pulls out a pair of swimming goggles and puts those on too. He looks mad, but he says you can't be too careful, and I agree. Wait in Dory's flat for me. Don't come downstairs whatever you do. Promise me, Addie. I might let spores into the tower when I go out, so you must wait with Dory. Okay, I say. Good luck. But it doesn't seem enough to just say that. Because what I'm thinking is, please, please be all right. Please, please come back. Please, please save Gaia. And I'm thinking that Obi is the bravest man I have ever met. So at the end of that chapter, when Addie says good luck to Obi, he's not really saying what he's thinking. He's got a lot of things going on in his head that he wants to say to Obi, but doesn't know how to. And there's that feeling all the way through that chapter when they're having that conversation together of things that are left unsaid between them. There's almost like a whole other conversation of thoughts going on beneath what they're saying to each other. So in the portfolio work today, you've got some quotes from that chapter. And with each quote, you're going to say what you think the character's really thinking and feeling, because they're not really expressing themselves at all. So I've done an example for the first one, so you can see what I mean, and then you do the ones after that.